Okay, guys, so here goes my computer history. Now, my computer history is a little different than my video game history. It actually started with the Altar. If you guys don't know what the Altar is, it basically was like a hobbyist computer, but it's basically what developed into our modern PC. The technologies from it sort of, kind of, it's like how we evolved from like apes, monkeys, stuff like that. That's basically where the PC evolved from. So that's like the monkey or the ape, and the PC that we have now is like the human, you know. But anyway, I kind of got started on that because my dad had one, which was kind of cool. Then we got an Apple II, which is the first computer that I actually really used. And I think I was like in third grade when we first got computers in our school. We actually had a computer lab full of, I think, like maybe 5 or 6 Apple IIs. And it was just like such a development back then to have an actual computer lab. Oh my God, we have computers. It was only like 5 apples. It was so funny because I remember going into class, and before we could even touch the computers, we had to ground ourselves out. So we had to touch the metal on the chairs or the table before we even touched the computers. It was so funny to think of how that is now, you know. Anyway, and we had the Apple for such a long time, and then it ended up we got the, it was bought for me. I got the Commodore 64, the same one that's sitting over there. That's my old Commodore. That's the same one. I think we got the whole setup. We got the Commodore 64, the data cassette, and a disk drive for like $300 or so. And that was just amazing. Wow, like $300 for a computer. And the Commodore is basically the computer that taught me computers, what computers do, how to program, how that is the computer that taught me basically everything, guys. That's what got me into computers and what really interests me in the computer field. And that's what I do to this day. That's what I'm going to school for. That's what I do as a business, you know. So it's actually kind of cool. So I owe everything that I do now and everything that I know of I go cussing, fucking computers, over there. There's that old Commodore 64 over there. Well, after the Commodore 64, it was, you know, a slow old computer by the time I got like into the later part of middle school and into high school. And as I was going into high school, my grandparents decided, hey, you know, you need a new computer. So they were like, which one do you want? And they were going to buy me an IBM, like, compatible PC. I was like, no, I want a Commodore, I want an Amiga. So they bought me the Amiga 500. You know, that was a cool computer, but I wanted more out of my Amiga, so I ended up buying the Amiga 2000 from my brother-in-law. For quite a bit of money. But yeah, and I had that computer all the way until Commodore went out of business, and it was getting harder and harder to find hardware and software for the Amiga. It was just almost impossible. And finally I was like, you know what, I either got to make the choice. I was always a Commodore throughout the 80s and through most of the 90s. I was all Commodore, and Commodore went out of business, and it was like crushing to me. It was like it was just devastating. I mean, that was my computer, was the Commodore, and they went out of business. So just because of bad business practices and everything, they have a book out there. I forgot what it's called. I've actually got it and I've read it. It's about the downfall of Commodore and what happened. So you guys need to check that out. I don't know what the title of it is right offhand, but definitely check it out. Google it. Google Commodore and you'll see the book somewhere. And in 97, or actually it was 96, I started working for HP, and I got my first Windows box, my first IBM compatible, I guess you would call it, the PC, which was the the Compaq Presario 2200 that I showed in one of my last videos I did. And even at HP, we were still using Windows 3.1 and 3.11 for work groups. And I'd never seen Windows 95 until I got that machine, and Windows 95 was just freaking amazing because I was used to Windows 3.1 or like Workbench for the Amiga or Geos for the Commodore 64. So, and they were all pretty basic, looking things. But then you go, you go from the 8-bit to the 16-bit to the 32-bit, basically, computers. The Commodore was an 8-bit, the Amiga was a 16-bit, and then the 32-bit with the 486 Compact Presario I got with Windows 95. And it was just so cool actually seeing what it could do. It could play video files, it could play music files, which the Amiga could do too, don't get me wrong. But it was just the way they had everything laid out with the start button and everything, And about the same time that happened is when I found out about Linux. And they're like, oh, well, there's this free operating system. And back then, Linux really wasn't what it is now. There was like no GUI. Most of it was text-based. And it was really hard to work with unless you started getting into Linux. And, I've contributed to the Linux community with some code and stuff like that. Because I've been a Linux user ever since probably 96 or 97, once I got my first PC. And, that's where I get my Linux fan man name from. I use Windows, I work with Windows-based computers all day long, every day. That's what I do for a living, pretty much. I go to school for, business, everything, But Linux is definitely, it's almost an extension of Commodore. Because the Amiga OS or the Workbench OS was a lot like the way that Linux works internally. The kernel is a lot like the old Amiga stuff. So, but anyway, so then from that point, I had my old Compact that I had forever. I never upgraded that computer because I always was, working at HP and all this, and never had a need to actually update my computer at home until I wanted to start gaming on the computer because I always had consoles. And then some of my friends wanted to game. Let me turn my monitor on so I got some backlight again.
As well, which I'm sure it was released before this game.
Watching YouTube. But anyway, so yeah, and it was just so cool to just have this computer and doing what I had to do with it. And so I had to start gaming. And so that's when I bought that Dell that's next to my server in my room, if you guys saw my last videos. And from then, I've just bought computer after computer after computer after computer. I have, right now, sitting in my house, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just 8 computers right now in my house. That's including the server. And then, like, with other things that attach to the server, like the PS3, so you can add that kind of, sort of. The Xbox, you can add that in. The Retro, my little console emulator, and the main machine over there. So that adds like 12 computers in my house that I have. And why I have that many, I don't know. I really don't know. It seems like we got a computer in like every room in this house, and some rooms even got more than one. But that's just the way it worked out with me. And that's pretty much my history of computers, guys. I can go a lot more in depth with it, but that gives you a basic idea. Alright, guys. Well, you have a good one. Peace out.